one of the potential challenges you might have going forward is something which a number of countries that actually get their public sector budgets in control and under very strong, prudent management. And yet, the corporate sector then goes out and borrows externally because they too need to grow. And if the capital market domestically is not able to feed that, and in fact, in a number of developing situations, Iceland was a great example. New Zealand's balance sheet looks this way. Australia looks a little bit like this in that the government has got its budgets in place, but the corporate borrowing, external borrowing is on the high side, or were on the high side in the case of Iceland, for example. The Philippines corporate sector is an ambitious part of your economy, and if you're going to get them to participate in your PPP programs, they would need funding as well. And you haven't sort of fixed this, the capacity of the Philippines to attract foreign direct investment at this point, sufficient to fund some of the projects that you have in place. Do you have some checks in place that you do not get into a runaway situation on the corporate debt side?
First, that's certainly not the case in the Philippines. We don't have that situation with the private sector overexposed to foreign borrowing. Secondly, we do have checks. The Central Bank of the Philippines has to approve all external borrowings, and they monitor the outstanding amounts and the capacity of the entity to be able to pay those borrowers. Third, there's enough liquidity in the Philippine capital market and the Philippine banking system. My estimate's about 3 trillion pesos just sitting there, waiting to be tapped. No? In dollar terms, that's what, 80 billion dollars that roughly that is there sitting, waiting to be tapped for more productive purposes. And in fact, as in my role in building the capital markets, I've created 25-year benchmarks. I've made them more liquid. 20-year benchmarks, we're making them part of our regular offering. I heard that a major global bank is about to put up a Philippine-focused infrastructure fund in pesos. And certainly, we are confident that there's enough liquidity to be able to fund the first projects in our pipeline. The World Economic Forum survey has us at 10 notches higher than where we were in 2009, and we're working on it. That's the third plank of President Aquino's program, really improving doing business in the Philippines, aligning forms, processes, making it easier to register businesses, using technology to do so. We're investing in that. On my part of the responsibility, we're about to launch the National Single Window in the Bureau of Customs, where people can get permits from 40 agencies online in a portal to do imports and exports. No? And once this is up, we can connect this with the National Single Window of other countries. No? So we're investing there. Incorporation of companies. The Land Bank of the Philippines, which has over 300 branches in the Philippines, has tied up with the Securities and Exchange Commission, which has only 8 offices, so that all the branches of that bank can accept requests for incorporation, again, making it easier to do business in the Philippines. Then the 200 local government, largest local government units have agreed to have the same forms, the same procedures. And these are all steps we're taking to improve our environment in the Philippines.
Give us an idea of the animal called a state-owned enterprise in the Philippines. Yeah. In a way, it's somewhat different from state-owned enterprises in other countries, which are often one of the first assets that a government tries to rationalize in order to make sure that it's able to fund itself and also provide infrastructure and services on a commercially capable basis. But the Philippines has been somewhat slow in rationalizing its state-owned enterprises. So what's happening on that front?
Well, I'm glad you asked the question. We just passed the bill,
Yes.
the government-owned and controlled corporations bill that allows us now to rationalize this corporation and classify them as to whether they are commercial already and can be privatized, or whether they're doing functions that should be in government, where we can introduce performance measures and rate their performance so that we can introduce meritocracy with these government corporations. In fact, we realized that this is an area that needed a lot of improvement, and that's why we worked closely with Congress immediately. And this was one of the first few bills, and it really empowers the executive department to
so now
restructure.
that the bill is in place, what are some of the priorities that you have on the use of that bill?
Well, first, to set up performance measures.
Right.
In the past, they operate on their own. Their targets and the goals were not aligned with national targets. So that's the first thing, so that all arms of government are pointed in the right direction. Once that's done, we measure their performance. No? Then as we do that, we look at how efficient they are. We benchmark them against...
Sure. But all of this means that you're putting yourself on a very long road where you're going to be just telling them how good and how bad they are without any real roadmap as to deciding which of the state-owned enterprises should still belong to the state and which should be privatized, which should be loaded off on the stock market.
That's part of the process, and that's something that you cannot decide with a swing of a magic wand. You need to study the roles that these entities play, and that process is ongoing. In fact, one of the things that we're looking at right now is the merger of the Land Bank of the Philippines and the Development Bank of the Philippines. This is something that's being studied so that they become more efficient in intermediating funds for the program of government. We're looking at an entity. In fact, there's a proposal right now for the privatization of the duty-free Philippines Inc. No? It's being reviewed. No? So just like in the private sector, you need a process. You cannot just jump into conclusion on whether an entity should go left or right. You need to study.
But just listening to the way you're describing it to me, it gives me the sense that you have no intention of giving anything away, and that, you know...
Far from it. Far from it. In fact, we have privatized companies in the past. I've pushed for increased offering of sale of PNOC EC, the exploration company, which is listed in the stock exchange. Petron, which is the national oil company, has been completely privatized. We're looking at others that should be privatized. So obviously not.
So
process is very important.
Are there rules about the privatization in that? Now, and this would be a message to the foreign investor.
Yeah.
And how can the foreign investor participate in some of this privatization?
Well, the commission has to be put in place. Now, right now, as Secretary of Finance, I'm doing the job, but the law has created a commission, and we're putting together that commission, and they will continue the job that we've started. But clearly, the Aquino administration is committed to making sure that entities that are commercial and doing the function of private enterprises should not be in the hands of government. To those that are doing functions that are for government and regulatory in nature should go back to government. 3, those that are missionary should be revisited and be reviewed to make sure that there is a focus, there is an objective, and that the results are
all this
measured.
Sounds exciting, but you were part of the previous administration.
For a short time. And I resigned.
And you did not have enough time to set in place some of these?
Because the previous administration did not have the right agenda. I resigned because we questioned, 1, the mandate of the previous president, and 2, the culture of corruption. Most of my life was in the private sector. And the only reason I came back is, 1, we have a president with the largest mandate ever of a Philippine president, and 2, run on a platform of good governance, and 3, is walking his dog. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm here to help him make that happen. We're on our 15th month in office, and we've done a lot over those 15 months. We've changed the direction of the Philippines across the 4 pillars that I mentioned. The 4th pillar being investing in our people, we're increasing that amount now to $1 billion, no? Making sure that the children of the poorest of the poor go to school and are brought to health centers so that when they grow up, they can become productive participants once the economy of the Philippines takes off. Because if we don't do that, this is the fastest growing segment of our population, then they become a problem. No? So we'd like to continue to make sure that they become an asset rather than a problem.